I made over $1 million in just 365 days.
Make money online with YouTube automation and make money just like this.
Back in 2020, I started seeing YouTube automation ads everywhere. YouTube automation is a rising business model that gained a lot of popularity using marketing that many considered scammy. I confronted one of the popular gurus in the space to find out the truth about this investment model. Yo man, I've been hearing you've been scamming some clients. You ready to talk about it? So I've seen some ads about YouTube automation. I've seen all over social media this idea of YouTube automation. What exactly is it?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of misconceptions of YouTube automation because recently, the last, I don't know, year or two, a lot of the crypto grifters moved into like AI. I don't know if you've noticed that. They went from being a crypto expert to being an AI expert. Ever since that happened, I think YouTube automation just really exploded, but it's been around since 2016. And so what YouTube automation really is, in my opinion, based on what I've seen actually works, is pretty much, it's a simple concept of taking freelancers online. So Upwork.com, Fiverr.com, right? Utilizing them, maybe utilizing some AI tools like ChatGPT. There's AI tools like Midjourney that allows you to create thumbnails and stuff. But you put all of that together and it allows the channel owner not to have to do a lot of the work themselves, because obviously it's like having a business, right? You're having employees help do the business for you, right? So it's in that mindset, and you can get it as low as $70 a video. Now, obviously, if you want higher quality, it costs more, but to get in the door usually costs $70. And so the problem though is there's some misconceptions going on right now where they're saying, oh, well, you can re-upload. I've seen like some stuff on TikTok. You can re-upload rain sounds. So you do like a compilation video of someone else's like sounds or music, and you do compilations, you upload those. That used to work in 2016, but there's a lot more guidelines now. They call it reuse content is what YouTube calls it. So you most likely, if you go about it that way, you'll get demonetized and you can't actually make money from the ad revenue. So there's a lot of stuff we kind of got to cover. And I've been at the forefront of this business for a very, very long time, when there's only 20 of us doing it, and we can get into that my story a little bit later. But I think it's better that someone finally comes out and really explains some of the expectations people should have when going into it. I think that's the problem with the business.
For a while, I was wanting to make a video on YouTube automation because I kept seeing these ads. Of course, the Caleb Maddix ad, we'll talk about that later. But I thought this thing was a little gimmicky, and I thought there'd be no way that there was actual success. I have a few main criticisms that I'll bring to you in a bit later. And I know that a lot of my audience is going to think that this is a scam. The second they hear YouTube automation, they're like, this is a scam. A faceless channel, you don't need to put your face in front of the camera. You don't need to make a video, the typical marketing. And so why do you think this is not a scam?
Yeah, well, I mean, the first thing is we got to figure out what the definition of scam is. Because I really believe that this is the problem I've experienced, being in the course industry. I've realized that everyone has a weird definition of scam because it's different for everyone. That's what I've experienced. And so I think first I want to ask you, and then obviously I can go into broad stuff of what I think some people believe. So what do you think the definition of a scam? What is considered a scam product to you?
I think a scam is when something is overhyped or overmarketed and then not delivered on. I think there's a big difference between, let's say if I raise money for real estate and I go buy a property and I say we're expecting 8% returns and we get 6% or 4%, that's not necessarily a scam. Or if there's just no returns, it doesn't go well. Maybe if you lose a little money, it's just a business deal gone wrong. Where it becomes a scam is when you promote 8%, 10% returns, and then you just take the money and run. Yeah. That's a complete scam. Same thing with the courses. If you overhype the course and you actually deliver it, maybe if the course isn't good, then that's where the criticism can come in, and hopefully the market will bear that out. There'll be enough bad reviews such that future customers will not buy. But a true scam is where you present an offer and then you don't deliver on it. That's my belief of what a scam is.
And I agree. I think where a lot of people go wrong is they believe a scam sometimes is where they buy a course. They know they signed up for a course. They know it's a course. The guy didn't say, I'm going to run everything for you. It's a course. You're watching lessons, right? And they buy that and they think that they're going to get rich overnight. Even if the guy said, look, it's going to take time. Because there's a lot of guys who do that. Actually, in my opinion, most gurus say, hey, it's going to take time. They're transparent about that. And then all of a sudden the consumer thinks to themselves, oh, well, he did it, so I should do it quickly, right? And then they say, well, the course wasn't great because maybe the guy didn't explain it correctly. It wasn't really well concise. That's not necessarily a scam. That's just a bad product, right? And I think that there needs to be a difference. In my opinion, a scam is someone who's committing fraud. A scam is someone who's literally taking someone's money and running away, like you said. That's a real scam, right? I think that if we get to a point where we can differentiate between a bad product and a scam, I think that would help a lot better with consumers.
Why do you think that the YouTube automation model, why do you think that is not a scam?
Yeah. So there's a lot of channels to do it, okay? And people sometimes don't even realize that they watch these channels. One channel I recommend people look at is Anna Oop. So Anna Oop is a it's not a face channel, but it's faceless, but it's a cartoon figure. So it looks like It's a face, it's a brand, but it's not, right? Another person is Jake Tran. Everyone knows kind of who Jake Tran is. Now, obviously, he is a personality, but he's not a personality on camera. You know, Jake Tran could have easily outsourced the narrator to someone else and just called himself his name, Jake Tran, and no one would have ever known, but obviously he wants a little bit about the publicity. By the end of the day, that principle can still be applied. So everywhere you look, secretly people are doing YouTube automation, but no one really mentions it. There's a bunch of them out there that I can mention, like Screen Rant, etc. So I think it's one of those things where people, it's always surprising me because for a long time they have called this a scam. But I'm like, you guys are watching these videos every day. Like, it's right in front of your face. You know YouTubers make money. At this point, everyone's accepted YouTubers make money. When I was growing up at 16 years old in 2016, everyone said it's not a real job, okay? So that's different. But today, everyone accepts you can make money from YouTube or TikTok. So how are we at a point now where you're literally staring at a working formula, a guy who got millions of views for a faceless video that, for all you can know, could be outsourced to editors online, right? How are you calling that a scam?
I've seen a handful of guys promoting this idea of YouTube automation. So why do you think you're legitimate enough to offer this kind of service to paying clients?
Yeah. So long story short, I'll try to get as condensed as I possibly can because I don't want to bore people. But I started in 2016 and I was working a fast food job. I had $200 to my name. I used to be a little Minecraft YouTuber making a little bit of money, you know, playing video games and stuff. And I got lucky where one of my friends and everything, he had a mutual friend of his that was blowing up on YouTube and he was getting like lots of views. It wasn't Minecraft, but he was doing like water bottle flip videos, right? This was 2016. So what ended up happening is I saw an opportunity to learn from him because I was like, I want to make YouTube a full-time career. I obviously saw my friends at the time, they were going into military and because, you know, they couldn't pay for college and military helps fund it and everything like that. And everyone around me is like, oh, you should go to college. You know, I grew up outside, kind of a small town outside of Kansas City, Missouri. And so I didn't know what opportunity was in front of me, right? And it didn't look the greatest because I had older friends who went that route and they were in a bunch of debt. And I was like, you know, even as a young kid at 16, I'm like, that doesn't sound like it's going to end well for me. Why follow the same path that doesn't seem to work for them, right? And so that's when I was like, okay, there's this one opportunity possibly where I can get into a group with this guy and learn from him, right? Because if I learn from someone who's already done it, chances are maybe I can do it too, kind of thing, right? So what happens where I had $200 left to my name, I saw this guy, he was live streaming, doing a Q&A and everything, answering questions to his fans, and I decided to donate my last $200 to him. And pretty much what I said in the donation text was, hey man, this is my last $200, can I just have a 15-minute call with you? He was like, all right, fine. So I hop in a 15-minute call with him, and pretty much I begged him, and I was like, hey man, I have some editing experience, I would edit your videos for free, I'll do whatever it takes, just show me how I can make one day YouTube a full-time living, right? Like whatever I gotta do to pay my dues to learn the game, right? And so he was impressed by me. I stayed up super late, edited videos for him as like a trial run, and he was really impressed by that. That YouTuber was called Top 5 Best. And so I kind of started that way, and eventually after I impressed him, he's like, you know what, I'll add you to a group, like a mastermind he had. In that mastermind, there were some really big guys. One of them was like Mr. Beast. Mr. Beast at the time had like 800,000 subscribers, but there's a bunch of other people in there. We were pretty small at the time. And that to me was key because someone at the time who had maybe only 5,000 subscribers at the time, right, to be in a room with guys with millions of subscribers, that's a huge deal. And that was kind of where I started in 2016 on starting my journey with YouTube. From there, my friends of my mentor, my friends of his, saw that I was doing all the videos myself for this guy, right? Like he wanted me to do the narration, he wanted me to do everything, right? And he was making money off of me, which I was okay with because the deal was you teach me the game and I can build my own channel after, right? And so eventually all of his friends around was like, yo, why don't we do that ourselves? So they went out there in 2016 on like Twitter and YouTube and try to find little gamers who weren't successful on YouTube and saying, hey man, I have this opportunity, I know how to make viral thumbnails and titles, all you got to do is make the videos for me, right? That was the whole agreement. And it started, YouTube automation kind of started almost because of me, because I accidentally became almost the slave labor for this guy, right? And so that really started the thing. And then as time went on, we started to see other media companies do it, but on a bigger level where they hired either, you know, freelancers online or they had in-person staff. One of those companies was called Valnet. They own The Richest, they own Screen Rant, some of the biggest channels out there. And we started to emulate what they were doing and became very successful and making lots of money. And so that's kind of the starting point of my journey with it.
Some of the biggest criticism I think that is going to show up in my comment section is, why would you teach others if you're just creating competition?
Yeah. I mean, exactly. That's a good point. So there was a point in the history of like when I was starting this. So I didn't start a course until I believe it was 2019 was when I started a course. Remember, I was doing it since 2016. So I was making 6 figures on my own and was way more successful, like not way more, but successful at the very beginning before I came out of course. Most people, what they do is, I've seen it time and time again. I think this is where a lot of the criticism comes out of the course space, is you see some random guy who just started a business model and he says, all right, now I'm going to sell a course while I learn it. It's like, dude, give yourself 1 to 2 years to learn the game. Like, give yourself a little bit of time. You can sell a course one day. Give yourself some time, right? And I think that's where the criticism is. But the truth is, I started without a course. You know what I mean? I started without selling a course, you know, and started that way. What happened was where my friends actually told me to start a course. So I went to an event called Vid Summit in 2019. You know, like I said, there's a photo out there. Maybe you can show it. I was hanging out with Mr. Beast, Ryan Trahan, all these guys. Ryan Trahan wasn't even that big back then, right? So I was hanging out with all of them. And one of these other YouTubers came by. He had about 5 million subscribers or so. He was like an animation kind of channel. And he asked me what I did and what my channel was. I told him one of my channels was Up Next at the time. Later, I sold that channel. But I showed him Up Next. It was a Marvel channel, again, using the faceless route. And we were getting millions of views. And I was making a good 10, 20K or so a month from it. And I showed it to him, and he's like, wait, so you're telling me you only have to do maybe like an hour a week, like on this? You don't even check in that often? I was like, yeah. He's like, dude, we work so hard on these animations. Like, we need to get a channel like yours. And that's when all of a sudden, like, a light bulb moment popped in my head. I'm like, everyone wants to do this. Like, all the creators I talk to, they hate showing their face on camera. I'm sure you hate always, like, not always, but once in a while, you hate showing your face on camera. There's days like, I don't want to film a video, right? That's just inevitable. That's going to happen, right? Well, this is a way around it, right? Like, that's why I enjoy the business so far, you know, and that's why so many other people enjoy the concept that we have. And so when I realized that, then I met up with Sean Cannell at, you know, Think Media, who people don't know. He's I don't know, I don't like using the word guru, but he's pretty much a YouTube guru, right? He's one of the bigger guys out there. And, you know, he's been in this space for a very long time. And I ran into him. He saw what I was doing. He's like, dude, this is like game changing. He was like, you got to make a course about it. You got to talk about it. And that's where it clicked in my head. I was like, you know what? Obviously, I want to diversify income streams. Everyone wants to make more money. And then also, if you can help more people, everyone's talking about it, why not? You know what I mean? The other thing I noticed was one of my friends, though. He was already in the, you know, the mastermind group I talked about that we started with. One of him, he was already starting a course. So I already saw it coming. I'm like, dude, he's going to be the one to talk about it. So when you're talking about the competitive side, why would you let people come to your space? I knew it was going to happen one day. So, you know, if it's not me, it'll be someone else one day that does it, right? And so that's another reason why I got into the space.
I think there's enough to go around as well. Like, if you have an abundant mentality, you realize how much wealth is in this world. Same thing, I have a course about real estate investing. You could say the same thing about me, but realistically, I'm not competing with 99.99999% of people who would even consider buying the course because of real estate is so localized. Same thing with YouTube. For those watching that might not understand, there's like 32,000 different niches on YouTube. If you're making a video about soccer stars, that's not relevant to anyone trying to consume different content. So I do have a question about the success of channels. You have an Instagram post stating that hundreds of people are making 6 figures a year making YouTube videos or showing their face or without showing their face. That sounds too good to be true. Walk me through why you think this is legit. There's
a list of channels that we found, and this is probably only 1-5% of the channels that are faceless channels that's made either close to 6 figures or past 6 figures, right? In their lifetime. And then also on top of that, there's way more channels, like I said, Anna Oop and all these other channels out there that exist. So we know that it's hundreds. We just know, right? And so I think, yeah, that kind of answers it. Like, I think it's dumb when people's like, how is that possible? I think too many people don't understand that. It goes back to abundance mindset. When you get more money and you make more friends, more connections who are very well connected in different industries, someone who's in real estate, someone who's in, I don't know, crypto, you build all these relationships. It's almost like in an airplane. Imagine you're being born on the ground of Earth, right? And you walk outside and you're living on a farm and you see all the wheat and all the weeds, right? That's all you see. And you think for days and days and days, it's just going to be like driving down into the farmland. But you don't know that there's a city with lots of prosperity just further down the road. And so not until you elevate yourself or you go drive further down the road will you see more prosperity. And so a lot of people who think that way, how is this even possible? Well, it's because you're not high up enough. You haven't built enough connections. You haven't been in the game long enough, so you haven't seen how much abundance there is. And that's where a lot of scarcity comes into play. When you don't have a skill set, when you aren't building connections and seeing how big the world truly is, right? That's where scarcity takes over versus abundance.
I know the first question that people would ask you, certainly they're going to leave in the comments, is like, dude, if this was so legitimate, Why aren't you just doing it all yourself? So why? What is your answer to that?
Because on scale, it's very difficult. When I'm doing these channels, right now we have, the way I have it set up, it's kind of like a hierarchy, right? That's pretty much the only way you can do this. So I have channel managers that now do all the video ideas for me, help me with the thumbnails, and then they manage all the freelancers for me. That's why I'm not required to work so much on these channels, because I have a great team that I give percentages to that run the whole thing for me, right? But here's the problem with YouTube. On scale, there's a lot of nuance. It's not like a copy and paste, business. What that means is when you're creating video ideas, it's really based sometimes around trends and what's currently happening and what people want to watch in your niche, which changes a lot. So it's not like you're going to learn it one day and be like, okay, I know that right now Selena Gomez is trending. Let me make a video about Selena Gomez. And forever I'm going to make 6 figures. No, because one day Selena Gomez is no longer relevant. You got to figure out who next to talk about. What's going on in celebrity pop culture? You got to pivot. And because of that, if you have 30, 40 channels, it's very, very hard. Even with great management, even with great team members, it's very hard, because let's be honest, we're human beings. Even myself, I get lazy, so my employees are definitely going to get lazy, right? And there's going to be days like I'm getting paid no matter what. So I'm just going to copy and paste this video. I'm not going to put a lot of extra time into the video idea or the thumbnail. So I think scaling is very, very difficult. I think that's where the difference is, right? And then when it comes down to a done-for-you model, so we used to have a done-for-you model. We removed that done-for-you model later on, because at the very beginning, on a low scale, we were very successful and had a very high success rate. But then as time went on and we started to acquire more clients, we started to scale and started to build more and more channels, we realized that the management of everything was very difficult to keep performing at a high level, and just went lower and lower and lower. We got to a point where we can't continue doing this. So I got my team in the room and we're like, we got to figure out how to either, renovate, make this, service better for people, or we got to cut the cord and figure out another service that can, better help people, right? And I remember I consulted with someone who is worth 9 figures, someone who's very well known, but obviously I'm not going to name, and a few other people who very well known who associates themselves with like Ed Milet and all these guys. And I talked to them because they're a very successful business. At the time I was like 21 years old. I mean, it was my first business ever. I won't even consider YouTube business. It's, because you don't have customers, you don't have a sales team, you don't have there's so much that goes into business people don't even realize, right? Compared to YouTube channels. And I consulted with them and I was like, hey man, I'm obviously not impressed with this success rate. I want to figure out how to make this better. Do I cut the cord? How do I improve this, right? I'm trying to get feedback at that point. And I remember he told me, he's like, this is actually pretty decent success rate. It's like, what are you talking about? It's like, how's a decent success rate? And for people, I'm not gonna say the exact number, but let's say below 50%, right? And he was like, this is pretty decent. I'm like, how is this? Like in my head, it's just like, maybe I saw the whole guru world wrong. And so I was like, maybe I'm doing everything right. It confused me because I was raised Christian, right? And so obviously I have some ethics that my parents instilled in me. I was like, I want to do good by clients and myself, and I want to make sure everything's good, right? And it got me into a weird spot because I started being like, maybe I'm looking at this whole model wrong. And I saw people doing Amazon done for you, right? I saw people doing Shopify done for you, Walmart done for you, like so many random stuff, right? And I'm like, maybe I'm wrong. Like maybe I knew that a lot of the success rate of those people were definitely flaunting. Like it was going down, right? Especially near the second year of COVID. Anyways, it got to a point where even though everyone around me, like some big level guys, right, that I looked up to said that it was, oh no, it's okay, keep working at it, keep making it better. I was like, I don't feel confident about it. Like I don't want to keep putting someone in this. And so that's when it got to a point where I had a tough discussion with my team, because the problem was we were at the peak. We had about 400 freelancers working for us full time. Okay. So we had an office in India. We had an office in Cambodia, obviously here in Texas. And it got to a point where I'm like, there's people like one of our team members, she worked really hard with the company, and she was in Cambodia. The money that we were able to pay her was paying for her her brother's college, paying for her whole family, and paying for herself, right? Like the whole family unit would be destroyed if I have to let her go. But that's why it made me so in a tough spot. It's not as easy as a discussion. That's why I think a lot of people have misconceptions when they look at Guru. Oh, if you're not getting results, why don't you just pull the plug and make it better? It's not easy, right? When you get deep into something, you got to figure out not only what's great for the customers, but how do I pivot my employees correctly? Because they go homeless, right? Like there's a good period they might go homeless. And you feel the responsibility as a leader to take care of everybody. And it's very hard to do both. So anyways, I got to a point where after a few months of like really thinking through it and everything and trying to plan it out, we were like, all right, we gotta pull the cord, because as time progress, it's not looking good for everybody, right? And we can't continue. It started good. Like I said, it started good at the very beginning when you have a small scale. Like when you have 10 channels, guys, you can run it. I've seen a lot of people do it. We've done it before. But when you start scaling 20, 30, 40, it's just going to go down. It's just natural. And so anyway, so that's when we pulled the cord. We revamped everything. We created more of a mentorship service. And I'm way more proud of that, way higher success rate, way more testimonials for that, right? Because what ended up happening is now the expectations was set good, where people understood, okay, I have to do the work. I have to show up every day, right? And we know that our strategies work, right? But we just know that it does take some work, and it does require the nuance of paying attention to small details that only one individual can do on just so many channels, right? And so I think also just a clarification, because I think there would be a lot of questions on, well, like, was there expectations set with the done for you, right? Like, how did you not, did you not meet them there or whatever? Did you not get them there? Like, people signed up with expectations. I think everyone needs to understand, in sales calls, we told people, results varies. There's no guarantees. We literally said that on results. We said, we'll provide a deliverable. Here's the deliverables. We'll make the videos for you, right? We'll help with consulting calls. We'll do all this, but we can't control directly what the results will be. Obviously, some clients have had a lot of great results. Some have not had great results. So when you join this, make sure you're risking the money that you can risk. It's business, right? And if that wasn't enough, we made sure in every single contract that every client signed, it said it in fine print. And we didn't have some contract, guys, where it's like 20, 30 pages with small text like a lot of these gurus do to try to hide the secret little disclaimer saying no guarantees. Guys, my contracts are 4 pages long with big text, okay? And the first paragraph says non-refundable, okay? So we tried everything we could to make sure everyone knew what they were getting into. Could be good or it could be bad, right? It could go both sides. But regardless, we still pivoted.
I looked at your landing page for your product, and it says that new course reveals a counterintuitive way to potentially make $300 to $800 a day through mastering the skill of faceless AI YouTube videos. That sounds really lucrative, so what's the catch?
I mean, I think we just went over it. We know it's possible. Like, we know it works, right? I think that the key word is, when you guys need to make sure, again, read the actual text. Don't look at something and say to and assume. I think a lot of clients do this. They assume something that's not actually there. The key word is potential. We're not saying join this course, guaranteed you'll make $300, $800 a day. Now, is it possible? Absolutely. We've had a lot of people achieve that. But we don't want you to think, oh, if I give them, $27, our low ticket, by the way, is $27, guys. Like, I don't charge a lot, by the way. I don't make any profit from that low ticket. Like, what ends up happening is people think, oh, if I trade this dollars amount, right, I will pretty much almost guaranteed get this X back. No. It's not. It's all based on the work. It's all based on how well you implemented the strategy.
I imagine some have the expectation that you just sign up and you're immediately given a channel that has super success. And I imagine there has to be some type of startup cost or some type of ongoing costs. So what are costs associated with a YouTube automation channel?
I mean, we don't provide YouTube automation channels with what we have, like right now, but the cost though. So I think that personally, first, one thing I think I want to go over is, like, too many people go into debt with any service out there. My personal opinion is, don't go into debt in business. Now that's me. I'm not a massive fan of Dave Ramsey, but I lean sometimes more towards his values, right? And I think that you gotta be careful with debt, right? Understand that business is the most risky thing. Doesn't matter what business you go to, and even real estate. I think you've told me some horror stories of your real estate experience. It can go good, it can go bad. There's a lot of things that can go good and bad, right? So when you do business, guys, please don't get into debt. Like, we literally had our sales team trained up. I said, if anyone says, oh, I'm going to take out a loan, immediately deny them. We're not working with anyone who has to take out a loan. That's not how we do business. You have to have cash to work with us, right? And by the way, heads up, if anyone works with my team, like, you get in a sales call, if any of my reps, like, if you say, oh, I'm going to take out a loan, if they don't deny you, tell me. Like, contact at automatechannels.com. Like, seriously, because that's not allowed in our team. But my point is, yeah, like, make sure you don't get into debt. That's the first thing. The second thing, cash. So depends on the way you want to go about it, okay? If you want to mentor, if you want to buy a course, that's separate. That varies, obviously, who you want to go with. Some courses are $100, like mine. Some courses are thousands and thousands of dollars, right? So that's separate, right? I don't know what that cost would be for you. It depends on the mentor that you want to align yourself with. When you're talking about actual production costs, actual building the channel costs, okay? I usually recommend at least $500 a month, at least. And that would get you maybe a good quality one video a week out that can perform. So make sure you have at least that budget. Now, there is a flip side. People can still start this without that budget. but you have to do a lot more work than 30 minutes a day or 2 hours a day, right? A lot more work. You gotta be making the videos yourself originally. You gotta be making the scripts, the narrations. That's what I did originally, right? Like when I worked for my mentor. And then as your channel makes a few hundred a month, you just reinvest that money back into videos, and now you can outsource yourself.
You mentioned earlier that you had shifted from like the done for you model into a more mentorship. So what are the expectations now when people sign up for a mentorship as the customer? What are they expecting to get when they sign up for a service like a mentorship for a faceless channel?
Yeah, I mean, every service is different, but mine. So the way we have it is I wanted to, when I revamped everything, I was like, I want to make sure this is a good service. I don't want to keep messing up, right? You know, if you can learn from your failures, that's all that matters. And so I looked at it and I was like, okay, if I was in the shoes of the beginner, right? What would help me? And I for that question, I had to look back at when I was in the mastermind with Mr. Beast and all these guys, right? Because that was key, by the way. We got into phone calls every day, guys, like for 8-10 hours a day, all of us learning from each other, being very geeky about, you know, analytics, right? And so what ended up happening is I had a discussion with my team. I was like, okay, here's what we gotta do. We gotta rebuild what I used to have for my clients. So we create a Discord community. I've seen other people, they create a Facebook group, whatever. So what I did is I interviewed a bunch of other customers from other programs, and I said, what do you like about that guy? What do you don't like about the guy, right? Because I'm trying to make it good. And they said, well, the Facebook group is just the interaction. It's just weird the way Facebook groups are. I don't really like it. Not a lot of people really comment. It's like, perfect. I was like, people want a live chat system. And I love that too. Discord, I love it because they have voice lounges, so you can hop on, hang out with friends, network, you know, real time chatting back and forth. And that builds a lot more of a less barrier to comment, right, and have engagement. So that, you know, that, by the way, Mr. Beast, all of us, we started with Discord calls as well. So obviously I wanted to revamp that. The second thing is, okay, well, we need to have great people in there, obviously teaching. A lot of course creators, what they'll do is they'll just hire some random person, some VA in the Philippines to do stuff. Here, take my course and then teach my clients. And unfortunately, that's not going to get the greatest results, right? And so what I did is I literally hired some of the best people who work for Jesser, I think he has over 12 million subscribers, people who's worked for Mr. Beast before, Airrack, all these big name guys, I have them as consultants. They do one-on-one calls with my clients. They do a bunch of, you know, weekly group calls we do with our clients. They're very hands-on, right? Because I wanted to ensure we have that. The other thing we have is an AI system. I'm not going to get into details unless someone's in the program, because, you know, that's a secret what we have. But there's an AI system where you can literally talk to the AI and it will help you with YouTube. Right? So that's a huge thing. We're constantly adding stuff to it. So like I said, that's my service. Everyone has a different service, but I believe that we've created one of the better services out there because of that.
Because the chance of making money is at the root of all the sales pitches and all the promotion of the concept of YouTube automation. Give me a real answer on like how quickly can channels get monetized? Yeah. What's the average? What's the expectation for these channels to actually start making $1 from AdSense?
So results varies across the board, right? So everything I'm about to say, don't be like, oh, well, that's guaranteed. Again, I have to keep saying that, unfortunately, because I would hope that people had common sense, but they don't. So I have to say that as a clarification, okay? So what I'm about to say, it can range for everybody. So for me personally, I've experienced that I usually have to create 3 different channels or have to do 3 different adaptions before I get it to be successful one time. So what that means is it doesn't mean 3 different channels. It means I start one channel, I go into one niche, maybe it didn't work. Okay, let me pivot the niche a little bit. Maybe pivot the content strategy. I could stay in the same niche, but maybe I pivot from top NBA players of today, and I pivot to more maybe rumor videos about NBA players, right? For example, I'll pivot like that. That's an example. That's usually what it takes for across the board for most clients. You have to do some pivot. So don't expect yourself to find a niche and right off the gate. It's very rare right off the gate to be successful. You got to pivot a couple times. That's part of YouTube. That's part of content strategy, right? So that's the first expectation. The other one is timeline, right? That's a big question. How long do I need to, be ready? It ranges a lot. We've had clients get results in 3 months. We've had clients take sometimes 24 months, right? Because some people learn faster, some people grow faster, right? Or grow slower. So I think at the end of the day, going into it, my answer is have a long time horizon across any business. This isn't even just YouTube, guys. This is across every business. Amazon, whatever you do, anyone who tells you can get results in 30 days or 60 days, that's not true, okay? Now, you might be able to make $100, but to make like huge money, that's not true. So I think that the problem I see, and I remember I have a bunch of clients, I've studied them all. And what I've noticed with them is when times get tough, they go into it, it's weird, they go into it with 3 months sometimes, right? They say, if I don't see some results in 3 months, I'm gonna pivot to Amazon or whatever other business is out there. I'm like, you're just redoing the cycle because it's a brand new skill set. What you guys are gonna do is you're gonna get into Amazon as well. You're going to start that for 3 months, be like, no results. I'm going to go into drop shipping. Like, what are you doing? if you really want to do this right, guys, you have to be a master. You have to commit. You have to look at something and be like, all right, here's the pros and cons of Amazon. Here's the pros and cons of YouTube automation, all this stuff. And be like, which one am I okay with? And then go into it. You can't quit because you're guaranteed to lose if you quit.
I've seen numerous of your posts on Millionaire Mentor, and I think there's a couple Instagram channels that you post on. And so I'm curious, actually, from the advertising point of view, like walk me through your advertising. How much do you pay per post? What are your expectations on profit? I'm just really curious about Instagram marketing.
I have to be careful because some deals I have with certain promo people is a deal only I have and other people don't. And I don't want to throw my friends under the bus because I gotten close to some of these people like Millionaire Mentor Jason Stone. I've gotten close to some of them, and so I respect them very highly, and I don't want to ruin their business, right? Because if I say that I have a rate and secretly I didn't realize I have the lowest rate, I don't want people to use that as leverage against them, that kind of thing. So I can't get into specifics about that. All I can say is that an average promo will probably cost you at least $1,000 plus, like an average promo for 24 hours, right? And for the big pages, little pages are different. And so I think one of the things is, are you asking like returns of it or what?
Yeah, I'm just curious, when you spend, if you were to spend $1, let's say each post costs $1, how much do you see in return over time? Is it like a 1.2x, 2x, 3x? I'm just curious.
It can vary a lot for everybody. It depends on your funnel. There's someone, again, this goes into business. I have people in my company who builds funnels for me, right? I've gotten to a point where I'm not a great marketer. Like I'm at a point now where I have, like I said, a hierarchy where I got to a point where I'm like, after my previous failure with the done for you, or I want to call it a complete failure, but it got to a point where it became a failure. I realized that my problem was I didn't hire experts. That was my problem. I was too cheap. And with this service, I hire experts and I say, I trust you, run it. And as long as we're all aligned with the same vision of what we want to build, run it. And so, it depends on the funnel, depends on who you hire as an expert to help build all that stuff out for you, right? Depends on your marketing, depends on how good your business is, depends on your testimonials. So it varies a lot. I see people who, I see some people, I think there's like a Richard Yu or something who runs these ads saying that he gets a 20, I don't know, for example, this is maybe, but I think I saw him run an ad saying he gets like maybe a 24x return on influencer promos or something like that. Again, I may be wrong, guys, okay? But I believe it's somewhere around there. I've seen other guys copy his ads as well, saying the same thing. But that's influencer promos, right? That's not Facebook ads. That's lower return, etc. So
I think a lot of my audience does find that topic interesting. I personally do. I love money. In a weird way, my channel is about money, and I'm on the outskirts of finance. And so it's always fun hearing about like returns, like how do people actually make money? And so for those of you watching, a lot of Instagram pages, a lot of these guys make significant amounts of money because guys like Caleb will go to them and pay them X amount per post. And if you do a post per day or a post every week, you could be making thousands of dollars. But now I'm ready to give you my main criticisms of the automation space. So the first criticism that I had was that the channel seemed to be in niches with super low RPM. Is that accurate?
So no, because every niche is different. So I'll give you guys an example. If you go into business or finance, it can range from $10, sometimes $15. If you go into automotive, by the way, some of those are sometimes $30, right? Every 1,000 views, for people who don't know. Now there's other niches out there. I'm trying to think of one because I don't go into them, so it's hard for me to think of one. But like there's other ones that only get like $1 return, right? One is recaps, like movie recaps. That used to be a big thing. I don't know if it's as big as it once was. There's a channel called Mysterious Recaps, I think it's called. And they did videos where they just do a recap of a movie or something, right? That stuff is like $1. It's not the greatest RPM. But at the same time, the recap niche gets such a high influx of views. You're talking 20 million views a month that it almost evens it out as if you were in a smaller niche like business, but has a higher RPM. You see what I'm saying? So in the grand scheme of everything, everyone's making the same amount because it all starts to even itself out based on the distribution of views to earnings. So no, I think it just depends on the individual, right? It's not like if I create a faceless channel, YouTube knows it's faceless, so they're going to demonetize me or they're going to make me less money. That's not how it works.
My perception was that it was always you were creating the top 10 animals in the jungle or the top 10 Cristiano Ronaldo's free kicks or whatever. And so my interpretation was that, yeah, sure, they might get 3 million views a video, but your RPM is so low that how much money are you actually making?
Animals is a decent RPM. At least the friends I know who's in it, it's a decent RPM. It's not bad. So I think
interesting.
It depends.
Okay, fair enough. Hey, that's why I asked the questions. I gotta know. My main criticism number 2 is that you aren't building any kind of brand. From my perspective, the big value of putting in effort on YouTube is that you're building up your brand, or you're building up a name. You can go places and network and have something to show for it. If you're a faceless channel, generally speaking, in my experience in looking at these channels, it's always not about a person. And so you're not actually building up a brand, and you're at the mercy of, if anything were to happen to the channel, you have nothing. And so I'm curious, what are your thoughts on that?
And that's a good analysis. I think it's always better to have a face, but remember, there's pros and cons. A Mr. Beast, he couldn't sell his channel. Now he can sell it with an agreement that he sticks with it for maybe 3-4 years, but you're a slave to your channel. An automation channel, a faceless channel, you can sell. I sold many channels and made 6 figures from some of them. It's very profitable to build a channel, sell it to some investor, because it's literally rinse and repeat situation. You can just take it, run with it. It's like a digital property, right? So that's a good thing. Now, on the personality aspect, there's ways you can build a connection with your audience. You look at SpongeBob and all those old cartoon figures that we all got connected to. Disney had Mickey Mouse. We all got connected to these characters. And they're all faceless if you think about it. It's all animations. So this is why I always recommend people to check out the channel Anna Oop. It's ran by a media company, but anyone who's a beginner can still pull together what they've done. And Anna Oop has this cartoon figure, right? And obviously there's a certain sweet girl voice that speaks for the cartoon figure, but it's their own personality. Another person is Base Zeus. I think he finally showed his face on camera now, I think. But before, Base Zeus, this was a dating, how to date, how to get girls, YouTube channel. And it was like a Zeus cartoon character and a voiceover, and everyone loved it. They connected. He used to sell, I think he still does, sold a dating course. He made a bunch of money from dating courses and affiliate marketing, right? So I think there's ways around that in the faceless economy.
That's funny, because that was my next criticism. My main criticism number 3 is that there's no product or service. From my perception of these automated channels, there's no product or service on the back end that you're actually selling, which, let's be real, is the real way to make money on YouTube in the aggregate. If you're someone who's lucky enough to get millions of views, you can make some money with AdSense, but the product or service is how you actually pay your bills and make some money. And so it sounds like you have found some channels that actually offer an affiliate service.
Absolutely.
Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, look at Bezos. He's done it with a course and everything. People will still watch it. People connect. Now, granted, is the return higher than a face? Probably not. But at the same time, you got to look at time versus like the time return. I'm pretty sure the faceless Base Zeus channel has to spend less time on videos because he has a great team probably that runs it with them, versus someone that has to show their face. Like you do a lot of work with your channel. You got to show up every day, man. And so it just depends on what you value. Do you value time more, or do you value money more?
The next one was just an idea that I have no proof on, but it just seems like you're at huge risk of a channel getting demonetized or the RPMs dropping. Before this conversation, my assumption was that there was no product or service on the back end, which is why it's so important to have that, because if you ever get demonetized through YouTube and you still have something to promote or a product or service, you can still make money.
Yep.
And so that was just kind of my more discussion about the risk of channels getting demonetized. Is that something you see across the board at all?
So it depends on how you edit your videos, and it depends on who you follow for advice. And this is where I think that the YouTube automation business model is starting to get that almost scammy word of mouth. Because if you follow the old advice that worked, like I said, it used to work. So they're not wrong, but they're wrong today. It worked in 2016, 2017, maybe even 2018. I think it was 2019 when it stopped working, of doing compilation videos. I see a lot of people do like TikTok compilations. So they gather a bunch of clips from TikTok, they reformat it, and then they upload it. You're going to get a thing if you're monetized at the very beginning. Some people get around it, but it's a ticking time bomb, right? If you are monetized, you're going to get a thing, a demonetization called reused content or repetitive content. And that's because YouTube wants, at the end of the day, YouTube wants some level of originality. When people think, oh, originality, I got to show my face. No, that's not what they mean. They just mean, hey, you can't just take someone else's stuff and put it out there, even if you rearrange the clips. What you got to do is you got to add your own custom narration. What I always tell people is there's a channel called, I think it's called Sir Reddit. And it got criticism back in, I think, 2020, because there was another guru like Maddix at the time that got a lot of hate because one of the guys that he hired to do the back end of the course, his success came from a channel like Sir Reddit, where what it is it's all automated. It's like a robotic. It's clearly a robotic narration.
r/ask Reddit. What secret do you keep from your family?
That just secretly takes, I had a friend that created a software for this that they were all using, but behind the scenes. It takes everything from Reddit, you tell it a topic or a thread, it will take all of this footage, automatically edit it for you with the narration being reread in a robotic voice, and you're done. It's pressing a button and you're done. You re-upload it, and they were getting millions of views, right? And they were making good money until YouTube saw that. They're like, dude, we don't want this. This is just repetitive. There's no creativity here. And they demonetized all those channels. And that's the criticism that Caleb Maddix and other people got at the very beginning back in, I think, 2020, and why YouTube automation had such a scammy presence. So the answer is, it's only scammy if you do that. You got to be a little bit original. You got to have your own narration or someone else that you hire.
That's fair, because that's where a lot of my perception of this industry was. A lot of these gurus, they're 20 years old and they come out and say how you can make all this money, X amount of dollars per day, hundreds of dollars per day, and all you have to do is, and it, I think someone exposed that one of the channels was like a Reddit channel, and I'm thinking they're selling a course, and their advice is to go to Reddit and just essentially steal Reddit content and just post it on YouTube. And so that's where my perception was. So it does sound like the industry has shifted, which is a good thing, because then that means the chance of the content getting demonetized is probably a lot lower than my perception is, because I think before it was probably much higher, especially if you're doing this type of content, or if you're using copyright content, which my perception was that a lot of the content was that as well. Question for you is, what happens if a channel doesn't succeed under either the automation space or mentorship? What does success, or what does failure look like to a channel, and what happens if they don't have success?
Yeah. So the mindset is, look, it's all about content. Like I said, you can't quit. So the guarantee we have of our clients, we work with them in the mentorship program. We work with them all the way through. So until they quit, we quit, right? And so that in my head means you can't lose, obviously, unless you quit. You know, I truly believe that if someone's really at it, like they really are trying, and they go a long time, constantly trying, reiterating, fixing things, blah, 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 listening to my team's advice, I truly believe they'll get success. Time horizon, I don't know, because everyone's different.
I like that, because, and that's the benefit of the mentorship model, is that when you are giving someone the actual game on how to succeed, sure, in 3 months they might not have success. Their expectations might have been 6, 9, 12 months, and you don't have success. But if you stick with it, I think any type of legitimate business opportunity, you can make money in the long term. So you mentioned the name Caleb Maddix earlier, and he was someone who was promoting YouTube automation for a while. His ads were clearly converting, because every single time you go onto YouTube, it was, this is the greatest opportunity in the history of the world.
Where should you put your money? People ask me all the time, they say, Caleb, I got $10,000. Is to invest your money into YouTube using the YTA method.
Which was, an interesting conversation about like, where is marketing and where is scammy. And so I was just curious if you had any opinion on him, as I imagine he brought a lot of attention into your world. And so if you have just any thoughts on that.
I think the sad part is Caleb Maddix and my name is very similar. Think about it, Caleb Maddix, Caleb Box. And I had issues because I would do deals for influencer promos. They're like, I don't want to promote you because you're a scam. I'm like, what are you talking about? They're like, CoffeeZilla exposed you. I'm like, no, he didn't. What are you talking? And he shows me that interview. I'm like, bro, that's Caleb Maddix. We're not the same people.
Follow-up video after actually having access to it. I'm happy to do it. Not a single place do I ever mention repurposing content.
It always frustrated me because, again, Caleb Maddix was never in this space. He just partnered up with someone who was. And because he didn't know what he was talking about, when he got questioned by CoffeeZilla, he looked stupid. Now, granted, the problem is because he looked stupid, because he didn't know the business, it looked like it was a scam, and that CoffeeZilla was telling the truth that it doesn't work. But there's more context to it. There's more nuance to it. And you need someone who's an expert, who's been in the game like me for a while, to be able to debate all this stuff. And I think that's where the whole business model got destroyed temporarily back then, because we had someone that was representing the business model who never actually did it.
Where do you think this space is going over the next couple of years? Do you think there's anything that could really hinder anyone having success with faceless channels at all?
I don't think so, because faceless channels have secretly been around for a very, very long time. And I don't see YouTube removing that. The only way I can think of is if copyright laws change. The only way. And by the way, if copyright laws change, every single video, even face, will be completely changed. Because remember, you have to show B-roll, and sometimes you have to get some copyright footage, but you edit it in fair use is what they call it, right? That's what lawyers call it. You edit in fair use, which is exactly what automation channels we teach people to do. But obviously, if the fair use law gets destroyed or gets revamped, you're talking about the whole space, not even faceless channels, the whole space of content creation collapses overnight, right? I don't know if that's going to happen. It probably won't. But that is the only way I see faceless channels becoming destroyed overnight, is if that happens.
A quick final discussion that I think will be fun. I'm so pro real estate. I tell everyone to invest in real estate. And so I'm curious on, over the next 5 years, what would be a better investment for people? So I'm going to make my pitch and then you can make your pitch. I think real estate is the best for people because at the worst case, you still have an asset. And historically speaking, as long as you can hold long term, you're going to make appreciation as long as you stay away from certain markets and certain periods of time. Like if you buy in a major city, you're going to get appreciation over time. You're going to get mortgage pay down. The method that I implement is house hacking, where you rent by the room. So I think the risk on my kind of investing is actually really, really, really low. And I instruct people in my course to go get their real estate license before buying, because if you can put down 5% on an owner occupied house and you're the buyer's agent, you get 2.5%, you get like an immediate 50% return. So I'd argue that real estate is always going to be the best investment over time. I think YouTube automation is another one of these kind of side passive incomes that can certainly work, but does have a higher risk factor. It is a little bit more automated. Last night, I was actually on a Saturday night at 8:30 p.m. I was going and painting baseboards and cleaning up the floor in a bathroom, which is certainly not something that you have to deal with YouTube automation. So I understand that there's going to be negatives to real estate investing. I would argue that the upside is still there with lower risk. And so I'm curious why you think, I'll give you a chance to maybe try and prove me wrong. Yeah. Why do you think YouTube automation would be a better investment for people than real estate?
I don't disagree with you. What I think there's some follow-up questions that obviously, again, every business has nuances, pros and cons, right? And I think it's up to the person to decide which one they want to do. My answer is doing both. That's always been my approach. So the first thing I have for you, because you're the real estate guy, so I have a question. How much, the average person, not like, I know there's secret ways to sometimes do zero down, but let's be honest, the average person, how much upfront money do you think it would cost to be able to pay their monthly bills with real estate?
Yeah, this is a great question, because I think our costs are probably somewhat in line, the startup costs. And so right now in Las Vegas, you're about $450,000 for a average sales price of a home. And so you're looking at probably $15,000 down. The reason why I'd recommend getting your license is then you would get half of that back at closing. But assuming there's some closing costs too, let's just call it $20,000. I recommend buying furniture as well. You don't have to do that. So anywhere from $15,000 to $30,000 realistically. If you're in some lower priced markets, you can get in at $10,000. And then of course, if you go the new development route, there's some financing options for developers. If you go through their financing company, you can do $0 down and still attain the mortgage. And so let's just call it on average, I think 15,000 is a pretty fair number, startup cost. And then monthly is going to be $3,000. And then what I teach, the theory is that you get enough roommates to live for free. And so let's say 15,000 startup cost and then zero costs ongoing.
Yeah. Well, the first thing is, do you need some decent credit to get loans?
Generally, yeah, you have to have
that's the first issue. I think, so this is what I'll tell you that me and some other people are doing, which is, by the way, the Mr. Beast mastermind I'm talking about, not Mr. Beast specifically, but other people in the group, the goal, we always talked about it. We're like, hey, look, and this is something I would clarify. I'll be very transparent about this. Guys, don't expect YouTube to be consistent, okay? And you know this because you're a YouTuber. I saw your channel maybe 2 months ago. You got 2 million views, 2.5 million views, right? I mean, I can only assume, obviously we don't know, but let's just say $10,000 of ad revenue, right? You made $10,000, but then this month, let's say you made what, $3,000, $4,000, right? It fluctuates. So heads up, remember, YouTube does fluctuate. It's up, it's down, etc. It's not super stable. But there is a higher return on the money, right, for putting it in. The way I look at it, though, is this is what my friends and I talked about since 2016. We said the goal is we take this money, and as time goes on, we put into real estate. That's the move. Because otherwise, you're going to be going very slow if you don't do another way to make money, right? Because you can get a property right now, if you do have $15,000, $30,000, which, by the way, YouTube is actually less than that. But let's just say you do. You can start right now, but that's one property. And it takes time to gain momentum in real estate. It's a compound effect, right? YouTube's going to be in the long term in that situation a little bit faster. Now, is YouTube going to be around 20 years from now? Probably not. There might be another platform that takes over. We don't know. So in that sense, I agree with you. It's not stable like real estate where you're going to have that asset 30, 40 years potentially in the future. So I think the answer is do both.
If possible, that's great. Thanks for joining me, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for answering the questions I had about YouTube automation and everything.
For sure.
And how can people find you?
Just look up Caleb Box and you'll find it.
You have a unique name where you could just be like, Google me, bro.
You know what? That's another thing. It doesn't make, like, I'm the only one that puts my legal name out there. Most gurus, by the way, guys, it's not their real legal name, especially in YouTube automation, I've noticed, which is the funniest thing because everyone thinks it's fake. They're like, there's no way that's real. No, it's real.
Thanks, everyone, for watching.